Hi, everyone, and hi to Lee. Fantastic to have you on here again, Lee. I absolutely love these sessions, all around property and mindset. And always, whenever I take on a new mentor or speak to somebody, one of the biggest things that I touch on is your mindset and how generally, and this is going to go into what we're talking about today, if you want to change from being this person to that person, you have to make some changes. And quite often we are held back. So, Lee, great to have you here. How are you today?
Emma, I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing really well, thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, for anyone who doesn't know you, I wonder if you might introduce yourself before we jump into the topic today.
Sure, Emma. So my name is Lee Roebeck, and I'm a mindset coach and mindset mentor for leaders. What I do is I help business leaders remove money blocks and attract clients easily. And I work with individuals from all around the world, Emma Howard being one of them. And these business persons are experiencing quantum leaps in their results because of the ideas that we teach. So that's just a bit about what I do, Emma.
Fantastic, fantastic. I love it. And yes, when I first came across you, Lee, as I often mention, it was in a field. It was raining. I was kind of overwhelmed. Everything just never seemed to quite happen in the way I wanted it to happen. And one of the things that you spoke about a lot was this having a self-image, and that's something that we're going to talk about today, and I really am excited to sort of delve into it. But when I look back, how different I am today to how I was then in so many ways that you might imagine are quite insignificant, but they're so significant. So I absolutely cannot wait to jump into this. So just as a kind of a general opening, really, I mean, how can and how does one's self-image influence their success in property investing?
Gosh, self-image is everything, Emma. It's like an automatic mechanism that's within you that determines where you go, determines what you do, how you'll do it. It's basically an inner image. So it's not the image that comes back from the mirror, as you know, but it's how you see yourself inside. And here's the thing: we can never outperform our self-image. Um, but the thing is, you can upgrade it. So you've got to, if you and I want to become a new person, a different person with different results, then we have to upgrade this internal mechanism. Otherwise, we're going to be sabotaging ourselves all the way to the bank.
Yeah, and that is a huge thing, isn't it? Because there are kind of two conflicting things. One thing, and I think that, you know, especially if you have young kids, which we do, there's a lot of your, you know, you're perfect as you are, which is absolutely correct. But there are certain things that we can, and so I've got two 18-year-old boys, and, you know, obviously I absolutely adore them, but I can see a lot of things that they can maybe alter or amend or change to become better people. And that's what I talk about every day is, you know, I am this person, but there's so much that I can do to become a better person. And I think that's quite hard, isn't it, initially? Because we start off with this, oh, we're great as we are. But how can you sort of weigh that up as far as, especially when we're talking to kids and things?
I think it's honesty, Emma. It's honesty. I mean, yes, little Rosabella is perfect just as she is. You know, when she came into this world, she was perfect. The spiritual DNA is perfect. Because at her center is spirit. That's the essential core of her. So she's perfect because spirit is perfect. But then we become layered as we grow up. So we go to school and we get teased, and they'll tell us you are redhead, or this and that, and whatever it is. You have no father, whatever the case is, and all of these ideas, or even what our parents and our aunts, our uncles, our grandparents in the home tell us who we are, what we're capable of, all of those ideas get programmed into this image of yourself. And then we just live it out. It becomes essentially who we are, or it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for our lives, and we live that out. And a lot of people don't even know that this self-image exists within them, let alone how to go about changing it. And that's what I'm hoping, that if one person, and we're streaming this across many platforms here, but if just one person gets this concept and puts it into action, I think our chat here will be worthwhile. You agree, Emma?
Absolutely. So you touched on something really interesting there, and I think I can really relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
Touch on that not everyone realizes that they even have a self-image. Can you sort of elaborate on that one a little bit more?
Sure. So let's understand where this concept firstly comes from on self-image. There was a man in the USA, doctor by the name of Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and he wasn't a personal development teacher or motivational speaker or anything like that. He was actually a plastic surgeon, and Dr. Maltz was doing operations on people. So let's say they'd come in and they've got a bad mark or scar on their face and they want it resolved, or maybe there's a deformity somewhere on their face and they want to fix it. He'll go about and he'll fix it for them. And he noticed after the successful operation that some of these individuals, some of his clients, showed up entirely differently. It was almost like they were a different person. And then he also noticed that with some other people, regardless of how successful his work was, there was no exterior change, meaning they just seemed to be the same person from a confidence, from a expression point of view. They were the same people. So this doctor then postulated that you've got two images. You've got the one, as I said earlier, right, that comes back from the mirror. That's what you're seeing right now on the screen, right, Emma? And then there's the image inside. And ultimately, the way you see yourself inside is going to show up on the outside. And this self-image is critical, absolutely critical to your confidence levels and to your self-esteem. And I mean, if we're going to get different results in business, or on our journey into a property business, we have to upgrade this image so that it's in harmony with the results we want. And maybe, I don't know if you want to comment on this, Emma, but maybe we can chat a bit more around exactly how this image works. Did you maybe want to say something more on what I've just uncovered there?
Yeah, definitely. And certainly within sort of, let's say, the property world. So in fact, I was talking to some of my mentees yesterday, and we were talking about, when you first start out, you feel like you know nothing. So I have a lot of people come on and they say, I know nothing about property. And like one of them was a letting agent. It's kind of like, well, you do know quite a bit about property. Yeah. And then there was another couple, really fantastic. I know really, we're really on the beginning of our journey, and they've already done 2 flips. And it's kind of like, wow. And then even if, myself, for instance, when I first came into property, yes, I really didn't have any experience in property, but I had a huge amount of business experience, and various sort of negotiators, ways to get on with people. I'd done some self-development, all of those kind of things. But what you have when you kind of start out is this image of yourself, exactly like you say. And it's exactly like, there would always be that like really pretty girl at school who would just make out that she was really fat and ugly, and you'd be looking at her going, are we looking at the same person? Because their self-image was so low compared to, and you just think, and I often look at, people that I would call just are lovely people. They're not supermodels, but equally they're not terrible. And they've got this amazing confidence, and they are hot. Do you know what I mean? They're really hot because of that. It's this inner, this inner sort of confidence. And so it is understanding, and it was something that I really didn't understand, of how you walk, how you talk, how you do things. And I know we're going to talk later, but I got to the stage where I didn't even realize how I walked even. And I suddenly realized that there was a few things, just physical changes, as simple as that I needed to change. And also going into sort of especially networking scenarios, or I've actually got a really big call today, it is to me, it is way above my stations. You know, it is literally something so terrifying, but I'm not going to go in and go, oh, I'm really terrified. I'm literally going to talk the talk. I'm perfectly capable of doing it. Just because I haven't done this size of a project before doesn't mean that I can't do it. And it's kind of having that view of yourself where the people that just kind of go, you know, I can just do it, and they just kind of live in the way they feel they should do. Like you often say, don't you, and I do this a lot, what would your life look like if you're the person who's already achieved everything? Will go and behave like that. And that was like, that is unbelievable to do something like that, to think like that.
You mentioned two things I just want to comment on. So you talk about this really attractive woman. Like I'm working with a client now. She's super attractive, like really attractive. But you won't believe it. Her image, she, like exactly what you say. I look at her and I'm like, do you not see what the rest of us see? You know, her image is just, it's indifferent. Let's just say it's indifferent, and it was created in that little life where you were told these specific ideas about yourself. Now, you mentioned other individuals who might be mediocre, but yet they show up differently. Now, I want to ask you as a female, right, Emma, what do you find more attractive in a man? Do you find a man who shows up confidently, who takes control, who just exudes, you know, this phenomenal energy? Do you find that attractive in a man?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting when, you know, you talk about when actually very attractive, physically very attractive people can actually be the most unattractive, can't they? And that's really kind of surprising when you look at it from that perspective, because actually there is more than that, isn't there? And actually, yeah, totally. And especially like with kids, I'm always kind of surprised, like, you know, Rosabella, she's got red hair. She's absolutely gorgeous as far as I'm concerned, obviously. But she equally does. Like she'll say things like, oh, isn't my hair a beautiful color? Because we've constantly said this to her. But clearly with red hair, she could have some issues. But she doesn't even, you know, she literally doesn't even bulk. Her brothers will call her, you know, ginger nut and, you know, be really rude. But she just doesn't even, she just says, yeah, I know my hair's really beautiful. And I love that. And that's what, you know, to have that from the start just puts you, to me, looking back on my life, it puts you a number of rungs further along. It kind of really helps you on your way. It's not the be all and end all. Obviously, we can all overcome stuff, but it's interesting when you see that that growth perspective, certainly from a child as well.
Good on you, Mom. Good on you.
There's lots probably that I've really done badly, but I always say once you're 18, I'm sorry, I tried my best. You've now got to overcome anything that you feel I did so terribly wrong.
You also said something, and there's another thing I want to chat about that you mentioned earlier, but you said something there. There's an unseen part of you and I. There's an unseen part of you and I that has a greater impact on others around you than your physical appearance. And Emma, you know, it's your energy. So if you've got a healthy concept of yourself and you see yourself, you know, as worthwhile, as worthy, and you just got this amazing respect for who you are as a human being, when you step into a room, that's who you are. People might not see it on the outside, but I guarantee you they're going to feel it because we constantly communicating to people through our inner dialogue. So if you've got a healthy self-image and you constantly saying good things about yourself to yourself, and you're not beating yourself up, you know, or having these negative internal inner dialogues, these conversations about yourself, but it's positive. People feel that, and that is so attractive. Like people feel it. Not to get too egotistical, but I think people's interaction with me and you, I'm sure, I mean, Emma, you've been doing this work for a while now, has totally changed because I've worked on how I see myself on the inside. So my view on self-image is far more important than what's coming from the outside, or what's expressed through the mirror. But ultimately, the way you see yourself is going to come through on the outside. And then just one other thing, you spoke about a networking event earlier. You said, going to a networking event. If you go to a networking event, a huge networking event tomorrow, and somebody walks in there, right? Let's say an attractive man, well dressed, he's got a beautiful suit on, like really well put together, but he walks in and his shoulders is drooped down, and he's got this sour expression on his face, and he just kind of walks to the room. Or that same man, well dressed, he walks into the room, shoulders back, bright smile. He's got this, really nice smile on his face. He puts his hand out and he starts greeting and interacting with people. And he's just got this amazing energy about him, right? Same person, same attire. The difference is what's going on inside. And I guarantee you the second gentleman will have far better results in networking or in any sort of setting with that image, with that inner confidence.
Yeah, I think, and also there are certain times, and I suspect men are the same, but obviously I'm a woman. But there are certain times where I haven't really felt that confident for whatever reasons. And but I've done my best. For me, I like to put makeup on, and I like to kind of make an effort, put some jewelry on, or whatever. And sometimes, and what I've learnt with your teachings is sometimes you just have to accept. You just got to accept what there is and make the most of it. So for instance, I'm doing a presentation this evening, and there'll be moments that I'm going to feel unsure. I'm going to feel not as confident as I could be. But you can bet your bottom dollar, as soon as I walk in that thing, I've had to make that decision that I'm going to let all of that go, because I've made a promise, one, to the person who's running this, I'm going to do a great presentation. And for me to be able to do a great presentation, I've got to give all my confidence. Like you said, I've got to have a really high energy level. I've got to really give everything I can. And if I'm just sat there, exactly as you said, self-doubting, oh, what's this, what's that? And and actually, there were times when I might have thought, oh, they might ask me a question. What happens if I don't know the answer? I'm kind of like, bring it on now. I quite like that. I can't wait to have these questions coming to me, and I kind of talk it through beforehand. And I think, it's has been for me, and I know you're going to go on about talking about your self-image and how you can grow it, but it's kind of just accepting also what I've got and just making the most of that moment. And yeah, I'm always, people will often say to me, wow, you've just got incredible energies. And I'm thinking, oh, is that not just the same for everyone? But there is a time, like I've come on these kind of events where 10 minutes beforehand, I've not been in the best place. But it's kind of a choice, isn't it? Like, I come on these things to give my absolute best. Do I sometimes think that I can do better? Yes, but I don't go, that was rubbish. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to accept it and move forward. So
you wanna be your biggest cheerleader, right? You wanna be your biggest cheerleader. And I think one of the best pieces of advice, you're doing this big presentation now. One of the biggest or the best pieces of advice I've received in terms of how to show up in front of an audience. Bill Gover is the father of professional speaking in the United States of America. He said you owe your audience a couple of things. So show up on time, make sure you're prepared, make sure you're going to give them value. There's a couple of points you need to tick off. Show up on time, give them value, be prepared. But he used to say, I hope they like me. It's better that way. He says, I like me. I hope they like me. But if they don't, that's not my problem. Now, there's no way that audience that you're standing in front of, or anybody listening to this, whenever you get up in front of a group of people, guaranteed, if you come in with a strong point of view, guaranteed that there are some individuals in that room that's not going to agree with you. And that's okay, right? I mean, it should be okay for people to disagree. You don't need everyone to agree with you. Your tribe will find you. So those people that resonate with your message and that agree with you, right, Emma, they will find you. They will find you. The thing is, you've just got to be you. There's a wonderful book. I might have it on the bookshelf behind me by Sally Whittaker, I think it is, the author. And she says, what others think of me is none of my business. It's true. I mean, that's the only way to really remain sane. Imagine trying to juggle everybody's expectations, Emma, and what everybody thought about you in that room. I mean, it would literally drive you insane. You just got to prepare, deliver value, show up there, give a strong point of view, and then make sure you give them value and then get out of there. You've done your best, but don't beat yourself up. Be your biggest cheerleader. And if there are people in that room that are your tribe, they'll find you.
Yeah, and in fact, and I'm just about to come, Richard has asked a few questions. Yeah, one of the biggest things that got me through a number of years is it's none of my business what anyone else thinks of me. It's my business what I think of myself. And as long as you can sleep at night, as long as you can, follow through, and quite often, you've got this thing, haven't you, of other people paying rent, but actually not giving you any money and taking up headspace. And I had a couple of years where it was very difficult to remove that. So I'd literally, it was almost like la, 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 la. I would repeat it over and over again. It's none of my business what anyone else, because these were people that made quite a big sort of statement about how they felt about me, and it was quite upsetting. But I couldn't control that. That was not something that I could control, how they felt. So I had to just control the way I behaved, the way I did things, and what I did. And yeah, that statement was massively powerful for me. But look, let's ask Richard answers Richard's questions, if that's all right, Lee.
Sure.
He said, isn't beauty in the eye of the beholder? He's also said, does it also vary according to religious cultures? And he said, my self-image is great. I love me. Just no one else sees it. I love that. He says, I think confidence has to be backed by personality. Otherwise, the people can come over as sort of boring or cocky or alpha male.
I think that's just a bunch of statements, right? No real questions that I can see there, Emma. But I think the older we get, the more we're not so attracted to the exterior. At least I'm experiencing that. Like who the person is, how they show up, how kind they are, how compassionate, how, they've got this phenomenal energy that just rubs off well on even anybody that comes into the contact. That appeals to me. Like that. But when we're young, obviously, we don't see those sort of things. But that's what I pay careful attention to today. And I think that's what we all should, So, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, especially when you become wiser. I won't comment on the other three, Emma. Religion. I think we all know it. It affects how we see ourselves. Like, let's say you're Christian. We've been taught we've been made in the image of God. And that's a healthy concept and idea to accept, to be true about yourself. So of course, there's certain teachings or ideas that we get from different religions that would affect our self-image. I agree. Okay. Let's talk about how it works. Okay, so the self-image mechanism in your subconscious mind is a lot like an automatic pilot, or automatic mechanism in a commercial aircraft. So let's say a plane takes off from Doha in Qatar, and it's on its way to Heathrow, London Heathrow, and it hits some turbulence on the journey there over the Mediterranean, and the plane is taken off track. The automatic pilot in the plane will pick up the deviation from the set point, which is London Heathrow. It will send a message or a signal to the turbines and the flaps and the thrust, and the flaps will shift, and eventually that plane will be brought right back on track, and it will land at London Heathrow. That all happens automatically. Those two pilots can be sleeping up there, and that all happened automatically, right? There's a set point where that plane is going, and it's going to be kept on course by this automatic pilot. In fact, it's been said that a rocket fails its way to the moon. So it's also got it's got this cybernetic mechanism. This cybernetics. So Dr. Maltz actually wrote a book on self-image. And for anyone watching this is really a wonderful book. Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Psyche is the Greek word for mind, and cybernetics is the science of control and communication in an animal and in some machine. So this machine, the aeroplane's got that automatic pilot, right, which is a cybernetic mechanism. Then you've got maybe an aircon in your room or in your home somewhere, and down south here in South Africa, we more or less in the middle of our winter, so it's really getting cold. You've got your aircon set, let's say, to 23 degrees, and somebody opens up the front door. They don't close it after they walk through the door, and a cold wind blows in, and eventually you pick up, it's getting chilly. You see the door is open. You close the door, but the temperature in the room is dropped. What happens is the thermostat, right, Emma, as you know, in that air conditioner picks up that deviation from the set point, from the 23 degrees Celsius, and it starts blowing out hot air. Eventually, the room temperature will get back up to 23, and that aircon will stop blowing out that hot air. That all happened automatically. The thermostat and that mechanism in the aircon, it's an automatic mechanism. Now, our self-image, your self-image, my self-image, this is what affects our results. So our results in terms of, if you're a salesperson, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a career professional, whatever your results, or let's say your results in property, in your property business, the amount of rent-to-rent units you have, or, purchase lease options, I don't know, whatever terminologies you guys use, right, Emma? Whatever results you're getting in the outside, that's a reflection of the thermostat inside. You'll find some people in sales, they might break out, they might have a good week, but the self-image, because it's constantly talking to you, it's either talking you into something or out of it, it picks up the deviation from that set point. Let's say you sell 100,000 rands or 100,000 pounds of whatever you're selling in the marketplace on a monthly basis, and you have a good week, you break out from that. Let's say you do 250, but then the self-image picks up the deviation from the 100, and it starts auto-correcting you. It brings you right on course. I'll maybe use a simpler example to explain how the self-image operates as an automatic cybernetic mechanism within you. Let's say you've got a fat image. So you see yourself internally, not what comes back from the mirror. You see yourself as a fat person. And you don't like what comes back from the mirror. So because you've got that image, right, it becomes manifest in your life. Your behaviors line up with that image. So eventually you start putting on some kilos. And you don't like what's coming back from the mirror. So then you go on a diet. You literally start starving yourself. You start eating rabbit food, right, Emma? And you just cut back on the sugar and the carbs, and, you're going hard. And what happens is you'll start shedding, right? So the pounds will start coming off. You'll start shedding. But the self-image, because you've got an image of an overweight person, picks up that deviation from the set goal, which is I'm overweight. It picks up that deviation and bang, the behavior will start changing, and eventually you'll come right back up to the weight where you were, if not pick up an extra few kilos. And this self-image is the reason why so many people up and down, they go like this throughout their lives. They underweight, overweight, underweight. They diet all their lives. If they just understood this image, that you've got this internal image, and if you shift that, the behavior on the outside, the shift there becomes automatic. So it's really critical that we upgrade the self-image. Just a quick story on image. I worked with a lady in 2018, Emma, and talk about, this lady was intellectually brilliant. I'll mention her name, Terry, and Terry Oliphant. And intellectually brilliant. Like this lady has a PhD in mathematics. Clever. And she a senior lecturer at one of our top universities here in South Africa. And yet she would walk into her lecture halls the start of the year, and here were all these, I think in America they call them freshmen, right? All these newbies in the room. They've just come into the university, and she's standing on stage there, and she's thinking to herself, they're going to ask me something I can't answer. She had studied 10 years to get all of her degrees and her qualifications. There were kids straight out of school, and she was thinking they're going to ask me something I don't know, or they're going to catch me out, they're going to figure out I'm a phony or whatever. But all these ideas running around in her head. And as she got into this lesson on self-image, as she started to understand it, she wrote an image script of the lecturer who was confident, who stepped into that room creatively and took charge, was firm and direct. And she rewrote that image script for a couple of days. She recorded it, but she kept playing with the idea, visualizing it. She done it over a couple of months. And she says one day, bang, it felt like she woke up a totally different person in a totally different world. And she says she walked into that lecture hall that morning. She stepped out behind the lectern, and she handled the audience creatively, or her students creatively. She spoke passionately, and same lady, right, Emma? Same lady, same intellect, same amount of knowledge gathered, different self-image, different way in which she's seen herself. And that led to her showing up differently. It's, the self-image concept is so important for you to know. I think out of all the mindset work I've studied, and I don't know if you agree with Emma, Emma, you might comment on it. But out of all the mindset stuff I've studied, I think this is the key component. Like I'd say it's the top thing that we need to tackle is upgrading the self-image on your property journey. You have to, if you want to get the results that's aligned with your goal, the goal you've set, whether it's amount of money you'd like to earn passively through your property portfolio, or whatever it is, you need to upgrade this image so it's in harmony with that.
Yeah, I definitely would agree there, Lee. And also, I think there are some things that we do in self-development that, if you don't literally have, your £1 million in the bank or whatever it is, sometimes it's a bit more subliminal. But actually with your self-image, and especially, I know we're going to talk about having a self-image script, like you said this lady did. She wrote down what she's done. And what's really incredible with that is there's quite a lot of kind of small bits that are very personal to you in those self-image scripts. Your life is your life, and that's what Bob talks about, doesn't he? He says you be the leading role in your movie, not a supporting role in somebody else's movie. And that was really powerful, and I didn't really get it initially, and the more I kind of thought about it, I suddenly realized, I see, okay. And interestingly, for years, didn't we, I was always saying to you, Lee, my family are always take, and I never really managed to be organized, because they always come in and do stuff last minute. And then kind of over the years, I've just become this person who preempts all of these things now. So whereas I used to kind of blame everything, and it's a lot of little things that you come across that I've really seen those big changes. And of course, you have some things that go up and down, and you have ebbs and flows.
Life.
But
Yeah.
I really see the biggest changes of a lot of things. And I think that's incredibly rewarding and not something that I ever imagined. You know, even just walking down the street now and the way I greet people, the way I respond, you know, even this morning, you know, I spoke to somebody and I was doing something really for them and they were quite aggressive and really ungrateful. And to me, I just came off that phone. I must admit, it's quite rare. I did shout in the car. And I said a few unsightly words. I had just dropped my daughter off. And then I took a deep breath and I'm like perfectly happy because I know that that's what that person is like. I don't want to be like that person, but that's perfectly fine. That's what that person's like. I'm not going to change them. And so, yeah, I kind of, yeah. So I totally agree with you on that one. But you kind of spoke with that, the Lady Terry. I mean, you basically described what we term as imposter syndrome, isn't it? So what is that? Is that literally just a reflection of our self-image? You know, why is it that we would, like you said, I mean, she knows so much. Why would she worry about somebody asking a question? Or why, you know, when you've been asked, for instance, like me this evening, you know, you've been asked to do a talk, why would you not from that take it that clearly you are expert enough or you have enough information that would be of real interest? And it does make me laugh. Even like some people have commented, oh, it sounds like a really great topic, oh, we're really looking forward to seeing it. And that's kind of a bit of a surprise sometimes to me. I'm a bit like, really? Oh yeah, I suppose, because I see everyone else as having done all these amazing things, and I think sometimes we don't always give ourselves that kind of credibility. You kind of allow it to go, and you have to force yourself. In fact, I'm part of a mastermind group, and next month we're all just coming together, and all we're going to do is talk about our successes.
So you ask why? Why do we have that imposter syndrome, that mechanism inside? I'll tell you exactly why Terry did it. So, you know, after she had this epiphany around her image being the problem, you know, in her lecture halls, she backtracked it and she tried to figure out, you know, where it came from. And she told me that when she was a little girl, she was very thin, like she was thin and she had bad skin. And she said she was teased every day of her life to the hill and back. Like it was just, she said, and I think that's where the concept, or this inferior, so-called inferior concept of hers came from. At least this is, you know, out of her own mouth. For me, I know, and I see a lot of people struggle with this. For me, it came from also being teased, also feeling like a misfit, you know, never fitting in any way. I didn't grow up with a father, you know how some kids are, you know, always talking about, you know, devaluing you. You know, kids can be a bit nasty, right? I mean, I remember some family members, some cousins saying, you know, you lost and found and things like this. And all of those ideas jabbed at you constantly create this image of yourself. And here you are 40, 50, 60 years old, and you still got this inferior image. Like, have a healthy concept of who and what you are. You know, like I said earlier, be your biggest cheerleader. How are you going to expect anybody on the outside to cheer for you or to affirm you if you're not affirming yourself? Because I promise you, even if somebody might like you initially, they might affirm you. If you've got that internal thing going on, they're going to sense that energy and they are just going to mirror back exactly what you see on the inside. So you have to, you know, what's done is done, right, Emma? What happened in your past, what happened in my past, anyone listening to this, Terry's past, it happened. There's nothing we can do to change it, but you can go ahead upgrading your image. And I think that's really the key in this mindset work.
I think where that was huge for me, as I was a real kind of a bit of a victim. I felt a bit sorry for myself. I felt that I didn't have control. But what I found working with you and you know, the Bob Proctor philosophy and Think and Grow Rich is you absolutely have control and you absolutely can do things. And that was huge because I'd got to the stage where I didn't know what else to do and I didn't seem to be able to make any changes. And yeah, so I was, it was almost like a real sort of relief that there was something that I could do and I could take control, and I wasn't at the mercy of past things that have happened to me, and that actually I can keep working to become this person. And I anticipate, you know, that I'm this person now, and I'm certainly in a process of upgrading, of making those changes, and I can see myself getting to another level or whatever it may be. But I constantly see that going and going and going, and actually I'm reaching a sort of a pivotal age, and I'm really actually really excited. I had a few months where I felt very uncomfortable with it, and now I've made a few changes and I've opened a few things up, and I just think, wow, you know, had so much of my life was so much unknown, so much learning, so much in the wrong mindset, and now I feel I've got so many tools to move forward. And yeah, and certainly in the property world, the people that I mix with now, I could never have imagined being a peer or an equal. And I feel so fortunate, you know, to have that. But it's only because I have created something more than I was. Obviously, I've done stuff, you know, but it's because of that, and also because of that openness to be, I think, humble, to, you know, but to have that energy, and people like being around that, and I've definitely seen that.
Emma, from the first time you and I had a chat, the first Zoom meeting we've hopped onto, to how you showing up today is totally different. Like it's night and day. I mean, you've done so much good work on yourself, and I mean, you know, it's the stuff is work, right? Um, there was something else you mentioned there at the end that I wanted to comment on. I'll remember, it will come back to me. But yeah, it's so many gifted people, so many brilliant people out there, and you see this a lot actually in. Terry was telling me in academia. So with these professors, these really smart people, but they hermits, they inward, you know, they quiet, and they, you know, they can't interact with people because of this, but they're intellectually brilliant, you know. So um I think maybe lastly, Emma, I see we don't have too much time left. The key, and this is what I wanted to give anyone who took the time to go through this and watch this with us here today, is how do you change your self-image? Like, how do you go about upgrading your image? So you realize, okay, there's some ideas from my past that are not serving me, and you know, I want to change it, I want to upgrade it. How do you go about that? What you've got to do, just like Terry did, you've got to take a pen and a notepad and write out a story of the man or woman who's already accomplished your goal. So the person who's already done what you are on your way, or you're looking to do, how does that person show up? Like, who are they? How do they walk and talk? How do they meet and greet people? You know, like you commented earlier, Emma, how do they walk? How does this person walk into the room? You know, um, how do they dress? You know, where do they shop? How do they travel? You know, you can come up with a whole, where do they live? You can come up with a whole list of different things and add a lot of detail. But the key to writing that script, and consider it, I mean, we call it a self-image script, but it's like a movie script. Consider yourself to be the producer of this movie, the financier, you know, you the script writer, the screenwriter, you the main actor, right? I think that's the other thing I wanted to comment on earlier, but I'll come back to that. You're a screenwriter, and you've got to write the script out, but the key is you've got to write it in the present tense. and start it out with saying, I am so happy and grateful now that. And I'll, just ramble off the top of my head. Now that I walk into a room confidently, my shoulders are back, my chin is up, and I walk in with great energy that everybody warms up to, let's say. Or, I'm so happy and grateful now that um, I make a sale every day. I'm an effective salesperson, whatever it is, whatever you feel you need to work into your image script, but write it in the present tense and, write a page or two. Like my image script is about 7.5 pages. I've got a client right now, Emma, the same lady I was telling you about earlier. I think her image script, she said, was 5.5 pages, and I've got her writing it every Sunday. She says it takes about 2 hours, 1.5 to 2 hours. So I've got her writing it every Sunday, and then I'm going to tell her to record it and to listen to it. When she's in the gym, when she's driving to work, when she's just doing some mindful stuff like the dishes or whatever. Have your earphones in and keep that script playing and literally bombard your consciousness with that image. And that's how the internal mechanism, this idea, concept of self, eventually starts to shift. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. I think that's how you done it, Emma. That's how I've done it and continue to do it because, the other thing I also wanted to comment on, you mentioned personal development is a continuous thing. There is no finish line. My mentor said that. He said personal development has no finish line because the thing is, you're always reaching for it. You never quite got it. So even when you reach your next property goal, you got to go again. You got to set another goal after that. You don't want to rest on your laurels because the thing is, there's a basic law of life that says create or disintegrate. You're either going forward or you're going backward. There's no such thing as standing still, especially in this technological age where things are moving at such a rapid clip. So you want to make sure you're always stretching and moving into an area you've never been. So when you achieve that goal, when you upgrade your self-image, then you set a new goal, and then you got to now start thinking, who is the man or woman who's achieved that goal? Like, how does that person show up? How do they walk and talk? How do they act? What effect do they have on people? Whatever it is, right? And then you write a new image script of that person. So that's how you do it. And like I said earlier, Emma, I really hope if it lands with one person and one person decides as a result of listening to this conversation that they're going to go and write a self-image script, that would be fantastic. Like that would make it so worthwhile.
I love it. Absolutely. And so just to reiterate, guys, it is literally as simple as picking up a pen and writing down. But obviously, I always like to do it when there's, so I haven't written many, probably 3 over the time that I know you. But I've always made a real effort because I have a busy life, got kids and everyone around and blah, 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 is to take that moment. And even I've actually gone away. I've made sure that it is a time where I can just literally sit and allow it to come out because I'm not a big writer. It's not something that comes naturally to me. English wasn't a big thing, but it was, and I know you talk about kind of 7 pages, I'm lucky to make 2 pages, but I'm not flowery. It's very succinct. I'm very factual. But it's interesting to go back and look and sort of think, oh, well, actually that part of my life I haven't even touched on. And so I just want to incorporate that. And it's, definitely, guys, if you start doing this, and this is something I encourage all my mentees to do because of Lee, then, just go for it because you will. And I said to a lady literally yesterday, I said, you write that script and you read it every day, your life will look so different just in 30 days. It really is. So it can make such a dramatic difference.
It's, especially for a salesperson, or let's say you're prospecting to get landlords to sign up with you, to use your services. you've got to walk into that room and own that room, or walk into that discussion. I mean, we know the simple things, right, Emma, like a firm handshake or eye contact, or those are simple things, but they've got carry such gravitas, right? They carry such weight into that discussion. Like you've got to really show up entirely differently if you want entirely different results, and that's why you've got to work on your image, because yeah, I think this is really an interesting concept. It's one I don't think I really got in the beginning. I think I'm starting to get it, or I kind of get it, but it's literally the key. It's the key to unlock that next level on your property journey. Um, you know, if you've listened to this right through, maybe listen to it again and again. Listen to it 2 or 3 times, because I promise you, in Emma and my conversation, you'll pick up something the second or the third or the fourth time that you never got in the first listen. And listen to it again, and then the action step we gave you here at the end, go and do that. I promise you, it's a game changer, and it will change your life.
Amazing. So just one more thing before we kind of bring this to a close is, obviously we're always going to come across sort of setbacks and failures in regards to our property journey, where we're going. I mean, what kind of techniques can you sort of advise to, keep that resilience and maintain that positivity during those challenging times?
Emma, challenging times and ebbs and flows and ups and downs, that's part of life, man. There's no escaping that. And if you go and you look at some of the most successful people in the world, you'll often find that they have far more failures than they do have successes. A lot of people have this bad relationship with fear or with failure, and they run away from it. So that's why some salespeople, they step out, they start taking action, start meeting with these landlords, estate agents, they start getting rejection. They don't like the rejection or the failure, and they run away from selling, and they give up on the strategies, or they give up on their property goal. The thing is, you've got to become comfortable with failure. I'll even go as far as saying fear and failure, you got to lean into it. You've got to lean into it, because that's where the growth is. If you're moving into a new area that you've never been, right, there's fear involved there. Like, if you think of it, if you played a sport for the very first time, when you ran out of those sheds, it was fear in you. It was something new. Or when you took on a new job or a new project, Emma, like initially there's some fear, right? It's part of the process. You can't have this bad relationship with fear. Fear's actually got to be a sign that you're moving in the right direction. And then failure is part of the process, because you're not going to be a master. If you play the game of rugby, you're not just going to be a master like that. You got to run out there time after time. You've got to put in practice every day for an hour or two and master your skill set, and just master. And when you have a bad game or you do something, then you learn from it and you change your strategy. You start doing things differently. So failure is part of the process. How does somebody become mentally resilient and go through that? I think your question was. You've got to have a belief system internally, which I suppose is part of the self-image, but you've got to have a belief internally that an idea I've accepted, or a few, on failure is failing doesn't make you a failure. You're only a failure when you quit. So I don't take failure seriously. Like, I know I'm only a failure if I quit. Like, failing, if I fail today, tomorrow, if I've been failing for the past month, I know I'm not a failure until I quit. So if you're on your property journey and you've been reaching out to prospects and you're not having any luck, you're not making any headway, you're not a failure until you throw the towel in. Until then, nobody can call you a failure, right? Would you agree with that, Emma?
Definitely.
Okay,
Definitely.
so that's one belief. And something else that I often play with, and I love the idea, is there's no such thing as failure. You can only learn and grow. I mean, you tell yourself that over and over. There's no such thing as failure. You can only learn and grow. Or failing doesn't make me a failure. I'm only a failure when I quit. If you tell yourself that over and over and over and over, and it becomes an embedded belief, something deep in your in a deep part of you, in terms of mindset, you're just not going to take failure personally. Like, and I think the successful salespeople know that the more no's they get, the closer they get into a yes. They just don't take it personally, right? They've emotionally desensitized to hearing the word no, and they just keep going. And that's what you got to do on your property journey. You just got to keep going. You just got to keep going. I mean, obviously you've got to work on your mindset. That is key. But you cannot lay down. Um, you cannot back down. Once you've made up your mind, and yes, challenges will come, and you'll have moments where you'll have some doubts, but that's those moments where this image script is going to come to your fore, and you're going to speak yourself into what you want, and you'll be your biggest cheerleader.
I love it. That's it. We have to be our biggest cheerleaders, but surround yourself with people who also think you are a fabulous person and that you're a go-getter, and whatever it is, make sure you go and surround yourself with people that support that, not people that pull you down. So absolutely. What an amazing session, Lee. I really think, the self-image script is just so incredibly powerful, and it's something that I always encourage as many people as I can to do it. And I'm always coming back to my own to see how I have progressed, but also to see, because there's still a long way that I want to do, and to upgrade various things. But it's so lovely, even just walking. My thoughts that I have in my head are totally different to what they used to be, and it has made my life much more of a joy. And that's really, really very special. So I want to thank you for that in helping me. But Lee, before we jump off, so where can people find out more about you if they wanted to, come and see you speak again?
So Emma, I think a good place to connect would be on LinkedIn. But for anyone watching this or listening to this, I'd like to invite you to a webinar that's happening this Thursday. It's at 10 a.m. UK, so that's your time, Emma, and 11 a.m. here in South Africa. It's a webinar called How to Clear the Blocks to Your Abundance, where we really go a bit deeper with this mindset work, and understand the self-image a bit more, because the self-image is one of three components of your subconscious paradigm. So we delve into that and really get you to understand how to upgrade your mindset. I mean, we've given you one action step today, but there's a lot of different angles that you can come at this from. So if what we've shared here today really resonated with you, and you want to hear more, and you'd like to spend an hour with me, it's a complimentary webinar. And I'd like to invite you. I know Emma will, but in all the platforms that we are sharing this, I'll drop the link to register below this. So just click on the link, register. I think we're about 50% booked up, so we've got we're about halfway there. So there's not many seats left, but if you're keen, do register, and I'll see you there on Thursday.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait. I think I'm booking in. I haven't booked in yet, but I'm definitely going to be booking in to be there, because any time spent on yourself, on your mindset, on becoming that better person is going to be that path for you to get to your goals so much more quickly and in a more enjoyable way, I think, as well, dealing with everything that comes to us no matter what. So I really, really appreciate that. So thanks again, Lee, for being with us here today. And definitely we're going to put the links out in all of the socials that we are out on. So do jump on and take advantage of spending some more time with Lee. Thank you again, Lee. Any closing comments?
You're welcome, Emma. You're welcome. I think I'll close off with a quote here. It's not who you are that's holding you back. It's who you think you're not. There's something so powerful in each one of us. It's not who you are that's holding you back. It's who you think you're not. So all those negative ideas that are programmed into your image, that's why.
Wow. Very, very powerful. Well, thank you so much, Lee. And thank you, everyone. Take care and see you next time.